Nader Habibi is a professor of practice in the economics of the Middle East at Brandeis University. He's joining us live from Boston. Thank you very much indeed for being with us. This will be an oversimplification of a very complex situation. But if Iran controls at least half of the Strait of Hormuz, why is it that it hasn't before now chosen to close it and use that leverage?
I think it's for strategic reasons and concern about retaliation, because it knows that the United States has enough military assets to either respond strongly or to neutralize that threat, although it would be very difficult. And I think, as you mentioned, there would be disruptions to export of oil through Hormuz, but I'm not sure if it can be brought completely to halt, given the capacity that Iran has.
Now, I was just reading that there's a worst-case scenario that some experts have put forward. They're suggesting that if indeed that there was either significant limitation on transport through the Strait of Hormuz or a closure altogether, oil market prices could surge from about 72 barrels now to about $100 a barrel, I should say $72 a barrel, I beg your pardon, to about $100 a barrel. That, of course, wouldn't just affect markets in China. It would also possibly have a knock-on effect to other developed economies, such as the US, for example. So, given that, what is the risk, do you think, in the event that the Strait of Hormuz, that for whatever reason, does end up being closed and becomes, at least if nothing else, a choke point?
Yes, I think, as you mentioned, the crude oil market is a global market, so definitely the impact would be global in terms of prices. However, the spike, in my opinion, would be short-term. We have seen the impact of previous conflicts, such as the 1991 conflict when the United States tried to liberate Kuwait. There was a spike, and then the prices returned to normal levels. Here, we might see the same. Of course, depends on how long this conflict will last, but definitely in the short term, even starting next week, I believe there would be at least a 10 to 15% increase in price of crude oil. It can escalate to about 100, as you mentioned. But if the conflict or the intensity of the conflict is contained, that will gradually reduce, decline over time.
Is there going to be a buffer created by, say, OPEC nations in order to try to offset any potential rally in prices?
Yes, but there is a limit to how much they can offset it, because just as you mentioned, about 20% of the global production of around 105 comes from Persian Gulf through the Strait of Hormuz. So I don't think outside the Persian Gulf region there is enough capacity, excess capacity to completely neutralize that. Another factor that doesn't come up is the impact of the GCC economies and Iran itself if this disruption continues. Not only there has been an impact on the oil production, but the conflict has also affected the non-oil economic activity in GCC countries, tourism. And keep in mind, there is significant amount of imports that come into GCC countries, into, for example, Jebel Ali port in Dubai, which are affected and will be affected by the blockage of the Strait of Hormuz.
Donald Trump and members of his Trump administration place a great deal of emphasis on how the markets behave. Well, the markets obviously opening up tomorrow, particularly Asia to begin with. What are we likely to see?
A spike in oil prices, for sure. And I think it would be somewhere around 10 to 15% to start with. But how far it will go and for how long depends on how long this intensive exchange of missiles and aerial attacks continues. And that depends on the capacity and the military assets of both sides.
Nader Habibi, we're grateful to you for bringing your expertise to Al Jazeera. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.